Hey, love your work listeners. I wanted to give you a sample of something new that I've cooked up for Patreon supporters. This is a new patron only podcast called Coffee with Kadavy. It's where I talk off the cuff about ideas I'm developing, talk more in depth about some of the books and cool tools and resources I share in my Love Mondays newsletter. And since Patreon supporters are basically buying me a coffee, this is like we're having coffee, even though I don't drink coffee. What you're about to hear is my fourth episode, so there's three more waiting for you. Become a supporter on Patreon. You'll get a custom RSS feed where you're going to get the Coffee with Kadavy episodes delivered straight to the podcast app of your choice, and you'll get Love Your Work episodes early too. Oh, and you'll also get to hear a sneak preview of the draft of the first chapter of my next book, working title, Finish What Matters, and I do hope to add some more chapters in the future for that. So it's a lot. I've loaded up the Patreon, so sign up. It's patreon.com/Kadavy. Hello, Patreon supporters. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Kadavy. This is episode 4. This time, I'm not drinking anything because I actually just got done recording some episodes for May, and I already drank my hibiscus tea infusion and my coca leaf. Added some coca leaf in there. Actually, the coca leaf with hibiscus doesn't taste great, but it does give me a little bit extra energy and attention to get me hyped up to record. What will I talk about this time? I would like to talk about ChatGPT. I know exactly what I want to talk about because I spent many hours trying to figure out how to properly record the audio on my laptop along with the audio that I'm recording right now speaking to you. And it turned out that that's actually very complicated to do, but I figured it out. I want to share with you a little segment. Maybe this will become like a regular thing, a chat with ChatGPT. I am really growing to like ChatGPT. I've got myself a pro account, been playing around with a lot. I like it most. I don't think it's a great writer. I think that ChatGPT is a bad writer's idea of a good writer. But I do love it as a conversation partner. It helps me really reach an understanding of really complex topics pretty quickly, and that really helps my writing. It doesn't write for me. It's good for small C creativity stuff, though, by the way. Like if you want to come up with, I'll look at some of my past chats. Like if you want to come up with a list of examples for something. It's trying to think of if I could find any stuff that has examples that behaviors of low need for closure. I was studying the psychological idea of need for closure, and the fact that some people feel an urge to achieve closure on certain things, and that can hinder their reasoning because they can reach conclusions too quickly. And I think that I'm a very low need for closure person, and I was trying to get some lists of low need for closure behavior. Like I can think of some for myself. Like for the longest time, I never wanted to eat like the last bite of food. For the longest time, I wouldn't make my bed because you're just going to use it later in the same day anyway. Why would you make your bed? Other low need for closure things, like if there's, I think I'll still do this. If there's something in the fridge that's kind of been there for a while and you're pretty sure it's spoiled, you just kind of still won't throw it out, not just because you don't want to waste the food, but also because you don't want to open the Tupperware thing, and then also you don't want to throw away the Tupperware thing because that's wasteful, and so it just sits there forever. So anyway, I used ChatGPT to get me a long list of things like that. But it's great for that small C creativity of just, come up with a bunch of examples of such and such thing. And that's really just a small part of writing, but it is great for reaching an understanding of complex things that you would otherwise have to read maybe several books to get an understanding of. So here we go. I'm going to have a little conversation with ChatGPT, and I'm going to use the text to speech on my computer to be ChatGPT. It's not the best text to speech tool, but hey, if this turns out to be something that you think is fun and interesting, then maybe I'll find a better text-to-speech tool. So I talked to ChatGPT about the concept of AI winters. So here we go. I said, describe for me the phenomenon of AI winters, ChatGPT.
AI winters refer to periods of reduced funding, interest, and progress in the field of artificial intelligence, AI. These downturns have occurred several times in the history of AI research, typically following a period of over-enthusiasm and unrealistic expectations, leading to disappointment when AI systems fail to deliver on their promises.
Oh, okay. So every once in a while, we have these periods of time where there's just a lot of development in AI, and I think we're in one of those times right now, and then there'll be a winter. And it's like you achieve a lot of results, and then suddenly there can be it says unrealistic expectations, following a period of over enthusiasm, and people are disappointed. Okay, well, let's see here. Oh, it continued on, actually. Okay, I should have just kept recording that. We'll get the rest of ChatGPT's answer here.
There have been two major AI winters in the past. The first AI winter occurred in the mid-1970s. In the early years of AI research, researchers were overly optimistic about the capabilities of AI systems and their potential to achieve human-like intelligence in a short time frame. However, as the limitations of early AI systems became apparent, such as their inability to deal with complex, real-world problems or understand human language, funding and enthusiasm for AI research waned. This led to a reduction in research and development. The second AI winter took place in the late 1980s and early 1990s. During the 1980s, AI research saw a resurgence, driven by the development of expert systems, which were rule-based systems designed to emulate the decision-making abilities of human experts. These systems garnered significant commercial interest, and large investments were made in AI research. However, the limitations of expert systems soon became clear, as they were expensive to maintain, inflexible, and unable to learn or adapt to new situations. As a result, disillusionment set in, leading to another reduction in funding and progress in the AI field. AI winters have had a significant impact on the field, leading to a more cautious approach to AI research and development. However, since the 2010s, the field has experienced a renaissance, driven by advances in machine learning, deep learning, and neural networks. These developments have resulted in AI systems capable of achieving impressive feats in natural language processing, computer vision, and other areas, renewing enthusiasm and investment in the field. While some still worry about the possibility of another AI winter, many believe that the current progress is more sustainable due to broader applications and greater understanding of AI's potential and limitations.
Okay, that was kind of long. Was that a little long? It was a little long. I probably should have broken that up by paragraph. Maybe that's what I'll do with the future answers. But it does tell us about the two AI winters. Imagine the 1970s. People were thinking, "Oh, we're gonna achieve human-like intelligence," and then that didn't happen. And then in the 1980s. And early 90s as well. But it looks like funding dries up. Things don't look as promising as they once did. Some people think that we're gonna achieve human level intelligence in our current renaissance of AI development. I don't know. I'm not an AI expert. I do understand a little bit that there's the difference between this expert systems sort of model where you kind of say, here's how you do this type of task, and then the neural networks, which is I think the basis of what's the current AI technology is. I'm probably butchering that, but it's feasible to me that there could be an AI winter that we might not see as much progress as everybody seems to be thinking that we're going to be seeing, evinced by the fact that ChatGPT is a bad writer's idea of a good writer. But it's great for little conversations like this. It's better than it kind of uh, closes the gap between curiosity about something and the knowledge that will satisfy that curiosity. Okay, so I'm the next answer is kind of long. I'm going to break it up a little bit. So, my next question for ChatGPT is, why might we see, why might we soon see another AI winter? Can you tell us?
While the AI field has made substantial progress in recent years, there are still factors that could potentially lead to another AI winter. Some of these factors include overhyped expectations. AI has attracted considerable attention and investment, partly due to the perception that it can solve a wide range of problems. If these expectations are not met, disillusionment could set in, leading to reduced funding and interest in AI research. Ethical concerns. As AI systems become more advanced and integrated into various aspects of society, ethical issues related to privacy, security, bias, and job displacement become more prominent. If these concerns are not addressed adequately, they could lead to increased public backlash and regulatory restrictions, hampering AI research and development. Economic factors. The global economy can influence the level of funding and support available for AI research. If the economy experiences a significant downturn, it could result in reduced investment in AI projects, slowing progress in the field.
Okay, so there's just a few of the reasons why we could have another AI winter. Overhyped expectations, that's certainly a possibility. People are certainly um, it's almost like anthropomorphizing a dog or something, like, oh look, this dog's talking. No, it's not talking, and they just trained it to make weird sounds. The dog's not talking. Dogs can't talk. Overhyped. I mean, you go on Dolly and try to actually get a useful image out of it. It's pretty disappointing, and that can be the case oftentimes with ChatGPT as well. I mean, obviously, as a writer, I'm biased. I want to not believe that AIs are going to be writing, better than I can. But there could be some hype here. Ethical concerns certainly have a lot of that. There's letters being signed by AI experts, and other people are freaking out. Economic factors. If the economy takes a downturn and there's not money for research, then it could dry up. Okay, let's go to the last three reasons we might have an AI winter, and a little summary here.
Technical challenges. While AI has made significant strides, there are still many complex problems that need to be solved, such as achieving artificial general intelligence, where an AI system can perform any intellectual task that a human being can do. If researchers hit a roadblock in addressing these challenges, it could lead to a slowdown in AI advancements. Dependence on data. Many modern AI systems, particularly those based on deep learning, rely on vast amounts of data for training. If access to such data becomes limited due to privacy concerns, data regulations, or other factors, it could hinder the development of AI systems. Competition from other technologies. AI is not the only technology that has the potential to revolutionize various industries. Breakthroughs in other fields, such as quantum computing or biotechnology, could draw attention and funding away from AI research, leading to a relative stagnation in AI advancements. While these factors could contribute to another AI winter, it is also possible that the current momentum in AI research and development may continue, fueled by broader applications, more diverse funding sources, and a deeper understanding of AI's potential and limitations. The future trajectory of AI research will largely depend on how these factors evolve and how the AI community addresses the challenges that arise.
Okay, so yeah, technical challenges, dependence on data. We need a lot of data for these things to be trained on. For example, if it's being trained on content that's written on the internet by content creators such as myself or many of you, and we're not doing it anymore, then is it not going to have anything to base its writing off of anymore? Competition from other technologies. There could be investment in quantum computing, biotechnology. Those things could that investment could take funding away from AI research. Okay, well, I went on a little bit more with that this conversation. Ended up asking it what sort of technical breakthroughs led to the current renaissance, and what about those technologies might limit progress and lead to another AI winter. I'm trying to think if I can sort of summarize this without making you listen to that voice again. But but it was saying basically the current renaissance is from deep learning, big data, improved hardware, open source software and collaboration. Transfer learning. Transfer learning allows AI models to be pre-trained on one task and then fine-tuned on another related task with limited data. Oh, okay. And then there's the factors that could potentially limit progress and contribute to another AI winter, which would be, we need the large data sets, lack of interpretability, because many of these learning models are referred to as black boxes because it's difficult to understand how did this arrive at these decisions, and so that can make it difficult to that can hinder the adoption of AI systems in critical applications where interpretability and trust are okay. So if it's a black box, I don't understand how it's working, then maybe in some cases I'm going to be afraid to even continue to use it. Energy consumption, uses significant amounts of energy. I haven't heard the amount of environmental backlash that I have for AI as we saw for crypto, or probably still see for crypto. It's sort of calmed down, but that's probably coming. Overemphasis on deep learning and scalability and generalization. Okay, so that's my chat with ChatGPT. Well, let's talk about some other things now. I like to share some projects that I'm working on. I'm not sure whether this is a project or not. This is just something I typed up on my typewriter. It's a list of beliefs. This could be dangerous. I don't even know what's on this paper, and I'm not sure how much I believe the things that I wrote on it. But I'm going to maybe read off some of these and summarize it. And I don't know, this might be a thing that this could be a note that I should probably put in my Zettelkasten, and underneath it, underneath each item, put links to notes that support or refute these beliefs. These are just a sort of a set of beliefs, things that I somewhat believe to be true about the world that came to me. Maybe it will be interesting. Time is a construct that we treat like a commodity. Okay, I've talked about that in My Management, Not Time Management. Pursuing material things and status at the expense of all else is a foolish mode of operation that's all too prevalent. Okay, yeah, that's not that revelatory. All right, by living abroad, you can get more of what you want out of life if you're willing to sacrifice the things you don't so much want. That's something that I notice living here in Colombia. For example, like the house that I live in, you can't flush the toilet paper in this house. Like, Americans are like, what? You got to be kidding me. I've never heard of that. It's very common in developing countries like Colombia. But you get a bidet and boom, now you've got it's better, and now you're like, you got a house for so much cheaper than you would in, say, like the United States. And if you're willing to make certain compromises, you can just get so much more out of life. It's sort of the principle of good enough, which I've talked about in an article about why I moved to the third world for a better life. The best investment you can make is in yourself, your creative freedom, your learning, your health. Wrote about that like 15 years ago. The economy is set up to motivate you to make choices that aren't good for you or your community. Yeah. The daily news is a giant distraction generated by ingenious people. Ingenious. It sounds like I'm saying they're geniuses, but what I mean is that they're ingenuine. Need to get my word right there. People motivated by more by financial gain than by pursuit of truth. Truth often does depend upon perspective. The biggest arguments in society aren't about truth, but rather what values are expressed in a given interpretation of the truth. Oh yeah, absolutely. People argue past each other because they're not even talking about the same thing. You know, I'll steer clear of anything super controversial there. Being informed should not mean arguing about current events. It should mean drawing upon millennia of wisdom to form a coherent worldview. Yeah, that's sort of a newer realization for me. I'm trying to kind of go back to reading philosophy and trying to figure out like what are the foundations of whatever I believe to be true. So that's a note I could really expand upon. Most things can't be known given our current information and technology, but we can tame randomness to our ends if we accept this. Yeah, this is sort of a Talebish thing, and something I try to keep reminding myself of with my own work is to allow myself to follow my whims, do ideas I'm not so sure will work. Things like coffee with Kadavy. This is a third rail, but let's go for it. Communism is a simple idea in theory, too complex to work in practice. Capitalism is a complex idea in theory, so simple that in practice it works. Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to somebody who grew up in Romania, and he was talking about how the government had given everybody I don't remember whether they were cows or goats, but the sort of officials that are supposed to that inspect everybody would come around and they're like, well, hey, how come you have 3 goats? We gave you 2 goats. You're only supposed to have 2 goats, and all of your neighbors are only supposed to have 2 goats because we're all equal. We're all comrades here. It's like, yeah, the goats had a baby. That was just a crazy story. And yeah, I would like to read. I've listened to a little bit of Marx's Capital, and I was just surprised to even realize that he had well fleshed out ideas, because the Communist Manifesto is a little thin. So I would like to learn a little bit more about that, but that is an 80% belief that I have. Well, I'll save the rest. How far? I try to make these things half an hour, so we're at 20-ish minutes or something. Okay, yeah, I've got plenty of other stuff to talk about, so I'll get to some of the other beliefs in the next Coffee with Kadavy. I think that they get more interesting as the list goes on, so I should actually make a note for that for the next episode. A cool thing that I've bought recently is a book stand. This seems so kind of obvious, but I don't know anybody who has a book stand. And it's basically just, it holds your book open and it sort of props it at an angle. And yeah, there you can sit and read your book comfortably, and highlight things or put it on your lap. It can be so uncomfortable sometimes, just like to hold a book and try to like keep it open. If you have to hold it with your hand, and you're also trying to lie down, or you're sitting up or whatever, and it's just really uncomfortable. So get yourself a book stand. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch on Amazon, and there's some that they also raise the book, and those look kind of cool. It looks like it would be a little bit more ergonomic, I guess, those book stands. But just the one that I got is metal, and I shared it in a Love Mondays issue. If you are somebody who gets Love Mondays, and I don't know where that is the book stand. I'm trying to figure out which issue it's in. Yeah, it's in 206. Challenges, not habits. So that's where the link is for the one that I bought, and it's the metal one is, I think, like the most elegant implementation of the book stand. Speaking of books, there's one book that I shared uh, long ago, probably. Wait, no, actually, no, I haven't ever shared it. I'm just realizing. Oh no, it's coming out. Episode Love Mondays 210. Oh, it's coming out in May. Okay, so you're getting a sneak preview here. But I'll share more detail. The Last Days of the Incas. This book is fucking awesome. Um, I went to Peru for a couple weeks a few years ago because I had to do kind of a temporary exile. I was having trouble with my visa here in Colombia. Some people might remember that. And I had to like get out of the country and go live somewhere, hopefully somewhere cheap, because I had to be gone for a couple weeks. And so I went to Peru. I was a little bummed out about it, but I said, well, I'll just do a lot of research about Peru and Machu Picchu and all that before I go, and that'll make it more interesting. So I read a few different books, and The Last Days of the Incas was the best one. And it, you know, it's a totally awesome book, and it's by Kim McQuarrie, and I've done some searching. I've seen that it was sold, or the rights of it were sold, or I think it was going into production even for a mini series, like a 13 episode series. This was several years ago, that the rights were sold for it, and it would be done by now. I'm pretty sure it would be out by now if things had gone well. I don't know why the series didn't come out. I've tried to message the author and have never gotten a response. Like, hey, what happened to this thing? I have a theory. My theory is that it's the kind of story that maybe doesn't work great given the current political climate, which overall is fine. There's lots of other stories that need to be told. And this is the story of the clash between the Inca Empire and the conquistadors. So it's a little repugnant these days, but it is an amazing story. If you just imagine, there was this Inca Empire. They had conquered so much of South America, huge expanses of land, and they weren't the most, and that power was not gained in the most peaceful manner that you can imagine. Like at the time when the conquistadors came to South America, the he was sort of the de facto emperor. He was going to become the emperor, and had gained his position by like killing at least one of his brothers, which I think is just kind of how you got power back then. Atahualpa supposedly drank out of the skull of one of his enemies, and like that was his cup. And maybe it was even cast in gold. I'm not remembering great. Now, it's kind of difficult to get really accurate portrayals of what happened because, like usually, his history is written by the victors, and so the accounts that we have of the Inca are mostly accounts from the Europeans. Though there were surviving Inca who did tell stories that were recorded, and they could be translated and stuff. But the Inca didn't have writing, which is kind of crazy because this was like 500 years ago. So there's printing. I might be getting the dates wrong, but it's roughly 500 years ago. So there's printing in Europe, and the Inca don't have writing. They've got quipu. They've got you can they've got like string with knots tied in it, and I think that they were using it for accounting purposes, and they had a foot messenger system, and as far as I know, their like masonry was extremely advanced. Their metallurgy was pretty advanced. Like their masonry, if you go to Cusco and you see these walls, there's just like these rocks that are the size of cars that are cut at strange angles, and but they are fit together perfectly, and you like can't hardly even get a knife into the joints. And supposedly when there's earthquakes, they kind of perfectly sort of become liquid and then settle right back into place. So their masonry was amazing, but they didn't have writing, so they couldn't really their story couldn't really be told. But so these Spaniards show up and they're on horses. The Inca have never seen horses before. That was part of what was probably holding them back technologically, was that there's not really like animals that you can use to do really significant work that are native to South America. This would be, Jared Diamond's theory from Guns, Germs, and Steel. There's like llamas. You can't do a ton with them. Alpaca, similar sort of deal. So Spaniards show up on horses, and they've got more advanced metal, more advanced weaponry. It's like aliens showed up or something. Now, one of the craziest scenes from the book, which I'll share, I think I might just go ahead and read this part of the book because this is like the climax of the conflict. Basically, Hernan de Soto shows up, speaks to Atahualpa. He's got his horses with him, or he's riding his horse, and he's telling Atahualpa, hey, meet with us in the square tomorrow. I think maybe it was I can't remember what he promised them. I'm not doing a good job here. But Atahualpa's like, okay, yeah, sure. That's fine. I'll meet you in the square. And De Soto bucks his horse, and the guards standing next to Atahualpa kind of flinch. And so after De Soto leaves, Atahualpa orders to have his guards executed for cowardice, because this gigantic horse that this beast they had never seen before, like bucked at them, and they kind of flinched. So Atahualpa's like, yeah, this is no big deal. I just killed my brother recently. I'm going to become emperor. And so I'll meet with them, and we'll get over with that. They get that over with, and then I'll have my coronation. And so here it goes. Among the Incas, only Atahualpa's top military leaders apparently knew of this plan. Which you're going to see the plan of his plan to capture and kill the Spaniards. Okay, Atahualpa was going to capture and kill the Spaniards to make eunuchs out of the survivors, and to breed these powerful and majestic animals that the Spaniards called caballos, horses. Atahualpa could hardly have thought that this small group of foreigners, who presently appeared to be cowering from fear inside a few buildings, were any threat. Their successful capture would simply mean the elimination of the final small impediment preventing his march on Cusco and the reunification of the Inca Empire. Okay, so I think there was a schism in the Inca Empire, and there was a sort of tension over what's the capital of the Inca Empire. So as soon as the Spaniards were disposed of, Atahualpa's coronation in Cusco awaited him. An Inca emperor wielding control over a reunited empire would then once again rule the entire civilized world, as far as he knew. After listening to the inevitably mangled translation of the friar's speech, Atahualpa must have appeared puzzled, for Valverde next held up his breviary or prayer book. Okay, so there's the friar. They meet up in the main square, and there's the friar, because the Spaniards have come because they're gonna spread Christianity to these heretics. and it's just almost laughable how dumb this is. Um, so Valverde, the friar, holds up his breviary or prayer book and insisted that everything he had stated was contained within. Indeed, the Christian God's own voice was contained in this very book, the friar insisted. One can only wonder just what words the native interpreter used to convey the idea of objects for which the Incas had no known equivalents. They didn't. I don't know if they had like the idea of words, or there wasn't books, there wasn't writing, and so the whatever the local interpreter they had didn't who knows what they would have said. Felipillo may have used the word quipu, the Inca word for their knotted string device on which they stored records, for book, as the Incas had neither books nor writing. Clearly intrigued, Atahualpa asked to see the strange object. He no doubt had already heard of the Spaniards' mysterious quipus, and that somehow the quipus themselves had the power of speech. So yeah, they had these the books were it was there were some accounts where people were saying like, wow, they can like look at a thing and know somebody's name, having never met them before. You know, if somebody had sent somebody a letter, but Atahualpa had yet to see or examine one of these quipus. The friar dutifully held the breviary up toward Atahualpa's golden litter, and the emperor took it. As Valverde watched Atahualpa fumble with the book, turning it over and upside down, however, he realized that Atahualpa didn't know how to open it. Valverde therefore stepped forward, reaching out his hand toward the book in order to show the emperor how it was done. Recounted Xerez. So this is somebody named Xerez who had an account who was there. With great scorn, Atahualpa struck the friar on the arm, not wishing that it should be opened. Then, stubbornly, he opened it himself, and without any astonishment of the letters, nor at the paper, as had been displayed by other Indians, he threw it 5 or 6 paces away from him, and the words that the friar had spoken to him through the interpreter he answered with much arrogance, saying, I know well how you have behaved on the road, how you have treated the chiefs, and have taken the royal cloth from the storehouses. I will not leave this place until they return it all to me. Okay, so this first interaction doesn't go so well. Atahualpa threw the book on the ground. Okay, so this is a holy book to the Spaniards, and they're greatly offended. I'll do one more paragraph and end with this. So, according to some eyewitnesses, Atahualpa now stood up on his litter and began shouting to his troops to prepare themselves for battle. As the interpreter Filipio scrambled to retrieve the breviary from the ground, Friar Valverde rushed back to Pizarro's quarters, very agitated, and began shouting, come out, Christians! Come at these enemy dogs who reject the things of God. Clutching his crucifix in one hand, he shouted, that chief has thrown the book of holy law to the ground. Another eyewitness heard the apoplectic friar, the instrument of God's will, shout to Pizarro, didn't you see what happened? Why remain polite and servile toward this arrogant dog when the plains are full of Indians? Go and attack him, for I absolve you. Okay, and apologize for the use of the word Indians. I'm just reading what's actually on here. So anyway, that first battle was a total bloodbath because the Spaniards had horses and the Inca did not, and it according to the accounts, it was very, very bloody. So anyway, that is The Last Days of the Incas, and it's a wonderful book, and I really wish it was a miniseries. And I've got that theory about why it's not a miniseries, and maybe someday it will become a miniseries, but it's sort of interesting how you can sort of that especially with film, the art, it's such a complex endeavor that whatever the political climate is of a certain time is really going to shape what comes out. Like if you've ever watched Knives Out before, it's supposed to be a mystery, but towards the end, you're like, okay, there's two potential people who could be the murderer. Given the current political climate, which one is it going to be? And it sort of ruins the mystery. Now, of course, been very different in the past. You like watch Gremlins. My wife is Colombian, so we're watching Gremlins. I'm like, yeah, that black guy is going to be the first one to get killed by a gremlin. I'm pretty sure. Sure enough, he is. Or The Shining. Anyway. But that's my theory about why The Last Age of the Incas is not a miniseries, because it would make an incredible one, but it's a little bit repugnant in the current political climate. So anyway, those are all the things that I've got. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Coffee with Kadavy. Thank you so much for your Patreon support. Back to talking just to you love your work listeners. If you're still here, I think you'd love the past Coffee with Kadavy episodes. I talk about email growth, my 90-day meditation challenge, a cool tool that will save your butt when your electricity goes down during a Zoom call, much more. You'll also get to hear a sneak preview of the draft chapter of my next book, working title, Finish What Matters. Sign up again at patreon.com/Kadavy.